Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hot Takes with your host, me. I am Marcus. Welcome back to the show. There's a lot to get into, so let's get right into it, shall we? On the last episode, I did leave off saying that I would leave you all with my prediction for the Super Bowl score, which I believe Tampa is going to take it by a point margin of 3 against the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe the score is going to be 37-34. Tom Brady is going to squeak one out. He's going to get his 7th championship. And that's all she wrote. 7 out of 10 ain't bad, is it? Yeah. It's going to be a heck of a show. The reason I got it being a high-scoring game is because both of these teams have pretty good defenses, but neither of them are neither of them are the absolute best. That being said, there's no way the NFL is going to allow a situation where you have the GOAT, Tom Brady, playing against one of the best young gunslingers in the game in Patrick Mahomes, and there not be a litany of touchdowns and points scored. It's going to have to happen. Otherwise, if this is a defensive struggle, this is going to be probably one of the worst Super Bowls ever. Honestly, I know a lot of people who think it's going to be a defensive struggle, and they're going to watch the game simply for the halftime show, which a lot of people do anyway. But this year, it's supposed to be special. You know, they have the Weeknd doing it on his own, so that's going to be interesting. Now, let's switch over to basketball just for a moment here. When we last talked about basketball, we were talking about the lack of defense in Brooklyn. Well, that hasn't really changed. Despite the fact that they are currently sitting at number 2 in the East with a record of 14-9, they give up the most points in the league. Their latest loss was against the Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards, by the way, are the worst team in the Eastern Conference. They're the absolute worst team in the Eastern Conference. They currently sit at 4-13 is their record. Now, albeit they didn't have James Harden for this game, but there was no shortage of scoring. And in this game, Kevin Durant played 30 minutes. He shot 11 of 19 from the field, 2 of 4 from the three-point line. He finished the game with 37 points, 6 assists, and 7 boards. That's a really good game for Kevin Durant, who still isn't 100% healthy just yet. Then you have Kyrie Irving, who, for whatever reason, is still taking too many shots. Albeit one shot more than Kevin Durant in this game. He shot 10 of 20 in 38 minutes, finished with 26 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. Not a bad game, but still too many shots taken from him. Now, you would think that this game would be, it's the Wizards, so they should still take this game pretty easily. Not true. So what ended up happening was they got a boost out of Joe Harris, that guy that everyone's talking about them possibly trading, but I don't think Joe Harris is going anywhere aside from maybe them picking up a big-time free agent, but I don't see it happening. Joe Harris chipped in at 32 minutes, shooting 8 of 13 from the three-point line, 11 of 17 overall. Finished with 30 points, 5 assists, and a single rebound. Now, he's not a rebounding machine. He's not going to do everything great, but the man can shoot the ball. So, between those 3 players, they should have had enough. By the way, Jeff Green, a former Wizard and Oklahoma City Thunder, and God, man, he's been everywhere. But Jeff Green chipped in with 23 points off the bench in 30 minutes, shooting 7 of 10 from the field. 4 of 5 from the three-point line. 23 points, 3 assists, 7 boards. They had more than enough firepower, but they just couldn't take down the Wizards. I mean, the Wizards only had 2 players who scored more than 20 points. That being Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. Westbrook chipped in with 41 points on 16 of 28 shooting. A lot of shots from him, but we've all known he's very inefficient from the field. This has never been a thing for him. He's never really been a great shooter. He's really good at getting to the rim. That's what he excels at, and that's what he should continue to do, even in his older age, even though he's me and him are roughly the same age. So I know I call him old, but I mean, in basketball years, he's super old. Bradley Beal finished with 37 points, and it was a wild finish at that. I must note that Mo Wagner ended up with 17 points, and Ish Smith finished with 13 as well, those being the 4 highest scores for the Wizards. The ending score was 149-146. Now, that score is mind-boggling. When I said that they don't play any defense in Brooklyn, I mean they really don't play any defense. Think about that for a second. They lost this game to the worst team in the East. They're the second best team in the East, and they lost to the worst team in the East. As a matter of fact, this season they're 0-2 against the Wizards. They've traded their entire bench for more points, and now they can't guard a parked car. That is horrifyingly bad management on the Brooklyn Nets' part. Now, there has been some other things going on in the league. I mean, there are plenty of teams that are taking the league by surprise this year. As a matter of fact, as I sit here and I give you these stats, the Cleveland Cavaliers, yes, the Cleveland Cavaliers are sitting at the number 7 spot in the East. This team seemingly looks like a bunch of guys that nobody wanted. They just it's the mishmash of players that just couldn't find a home and didn't belong in the G League either, and they ended up in Cleveland, and they're doing well. They're doing well enough as it is. Speaking of teams that are on the rise, even though we're the third worst team in the Eastern Conference, I almost said NBA, but it hurts that bad. We're sitting at 7-13. That's my Miami Heat. Now, funny enough, we were on a 5-game skid. 5-game skid. We weren't winning anything. It was pretty tough to watch. I'm going to just keep it 100 with you. It really hurt to watch them play for a little while there. But we did come out with a win against the Sacramento Kings, 105-104. Jimmy Butler, in his triumphant return, yes, I said it like that, his triumphant return, because he had been gone for a while. He missed about the last 10 games due to COVID. I'm glad he's feeling better, because we definitely needed him back in the rotation. Jimmy Butler, in his first game back, 34 minutes. He shot, Jimmy Butler's not the best shooter, 8 of 19, but he finished with 30 points, 8 assists, and 7 boards. That's crazy. Also, in Tyler Herro's triumphant return, he played 40 minutes. He shot 5 of 12, 15 points, 3 assists, 4 boards. He's still young. He's going to find his way. I figure by the end of the year, he should be dropping 20 points on a regular basis. Bam Adebayo has been playing crazy, like I said in the last episode. He's been shouldering the load in the absence of Jimmy Butler, and he's still playing pretty good, and it shows that his role changes slightly once he has help. So he doesn't have to put up 30 and 40 points per game. Now he can go down to about 20 points. So in this game back against the Sacramento Kings, with Jimmy Butler back in the rotation as well as Tyler Herro, he put up 18 points. He had about 4 assists, but he had 13 boards. He was able to contribute more on the defensive end, taking the space in the lane as opposed to having to do everything, which is kind of where he sits. But the good news is that this gave us an opportunity to see everything that Bam Adebayo is capable of doing. So we know that in the near future, he can be that franchise player that we all wanted, and we all knew he could be in the first place. I'm going to take a look out west, and surprise, surprise, while everyone has the Lakers repeating this year, which could very well happen, and I chose, foolishly so far, but the season's still young, I chose Dallas to win the championship if everything goes well, and Luka Doncic plays at an MVP level, which I think he still is playing at an MVP level. His team isn't really, they're not helping him, but it's gonna turn. It has to turn around at some point here. So in the West, the top team is the Utah Jazz, sitting at 16-5. I believe they just came off of an 11-game tear. They hadn't lost in over 10 games. That is amazing. The number 2 team is the Clippers, followed by the Lakers, Nuggets, Suns, Grizzlies, Portland Trailblazers, and the Rockets are currently number 8. Now, the funny thing about the Rockets being at number 8, when that James Harden trade went down, everyone in the sports world said that usually the team that gets the best player wins the trade overall. In this case, I guess you would say the Brooklyn Nets won. Not the case, even though they're the second best team in the East. They can't withstand this too much longer if they continue to play, because they don't play any defense. It's pretty bad, but we'll get back on that later. I said that the Rockets won this trade, not only because of the draft assets that they acquired, all the swaps and all the players that they're going to be getting in the future. Their current roster isn't bad at all either. You have John Wall, who is looking like himself. He's looking like the John Wall of old before he got hurt 2 years ago. DeMarcus Cousins is still playing himself into game shape, which every now and again he has a really great game, but he's playing pretty solid right now, so no one's upset with him. Christian Wood is showing out like never before. We saw him in Detroit last year. I saw him bounce around the league for a while, back and forth throughout the G League, getting cut from team to team, and he's making a name for himself out there in Houston, averaging almost 20 points and 10 boards a game. He is turning out to be quite the double-double machine. And the guy that I wanted to see play next to John Wall for the last couple of years, even though John Wall was hurt, but I wanted to see these two play together, and they're playing well together. Victor Oladipo, who would not commit to Indiana, at least not verbally at the moment, instead of them losing him for nothing, they decided to trade him to the Houston Rockets, which is where John Wall is. And he's doing outstanding as well. I said that team will continue to play well, and they will make the playoffs. And that's what they're doing as of this very moment. They're sitting at 10-9. I know the season's still very young, but I think if they keep it up, they could possibly finish in the top 5. They look that good. The worst, like I said earlier, I did choose the Dallas Mavericks to win the title and Luka Doncic to win MVP, barring any health issues and things of that sort. Once they are gelling, they're going to be in the playoff race as well. They're currently sitting at the 13th spot in the West. They're currently 8-13. Like I said, it's a very long season. Personally, I think that the team lacks, Dallas specifically. I believe Dallas is lacking some continuity. They just don't seem to be playing well enough together. Everyone seems to kind of be on their own little wavelength. I think that there's a chance, just throwing it out there, there's a chance that maybe this whole thing with Porzingis and Doncic might not be as compatible as they thought they were, even though it does seem like they should work well together. In other news in the NBA, there's been trade rumors going around again that the New Orleans Pelicans are looking to shop both Lonzo Ball and JJ Redick. Now, I know a lot of people think that this is a bad idea, considering that, JJ doesn't have too much value left in him, given that he is quite the veteran nowadays. He can't really play defense. He doesn't run the court the way he used to, though he can still get up and down. But he's a guaranteed bucket. He can put the ball in the hole, especially from the perimeter, which is what his specialty is. Lonzo Ball, this is one of my guys. As Dick Vitale in college basketball would say, he's one of my diaper dandies. He's not playing well this year. I think it's because everyone keeps trying to make him into something that he's not. He is trying his best to find his way, but I think what's going to end up happening is, I hope he does get traded. A team that needs him is a team like New York. I hope he goes to New York, and specifically because New York, while they are on the rise, because specifically New York, sorry, the microphone, New York is actually sitting at the number 11 spot in the East, so they're actually on the rise. They can get better. I think they need better point guard play. Speaking of their point guard play, just recently, as the last couple of days, Dennis Smith Jr., who hasn't been getting too much time in the rotation, has decided to ask the team, and they've granted this, that he's going to the G League so that he can continue to get better. Is he better than players in the G League? He absolutely is. He is NBA level everything. And I wish him the best. And Dennis Smith Jr., that, this, we want to talk about having humility. He would rather play in the G League than sit on the end of the roster when he knows he should be playing. That's humility. He's taking himself down to a level where he's clearly far and away the best player there, but he's not doing it because he wants to show anybody up. He wants to show other teams that may want to pick him up later that, hey, I can still play this game. And he's very young. I think he's 24, 25 years old. He's still very young. He has not lost a single step. He needs to be in the right situation, much like Lonzo Ball. I believe that if he goes to New York is going to use him the right way, or any team. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give everyone the right way to use a player like Lonzo Ball. He's a 6'6" point guard with a pass-first mentality. He is not a 3-and-D. You do not want him shooting the ball 10 times from beyond the arc. He's not going to hit a high volume of those shots. He just isn't. I think career-wise, what is he, 31% from the field? Like, that's horrible for a point guard. So this is what needs to happen. This is how you unlock Lonzo Ball. Stop trying to make him into this NBA All-Star. That's not his role. He's going to be a really good player, but you got to know what you're doing with him. He is a lockdown defender. He's playing NBA first-team defense every year that he's been healthy. He is a defender. He has a passing IQ that's off the charts, the likes of Magic Johnson, which is why they drafted him to the Lakers a few years ago with the number 2 pick in that draft. He's worth the pick, but they're trying to make him something that he's not. He's not a three-point shooter. He doesn't aggressively go after the bucket. He has a pass-first mentality. Now, in New Orleans, he should be looking to pass the ball to the surrounding players. He has Brandon Ingram right now, to which Brandon Ingram is that team's all-star. He also has a budding all-star in Zion Williamson. He has Jackson Hayes out there as well. He has so many weapons, but they're trying to turn him into something that he's not, which is what landed him on the bench in the first place. I surmise that if he goes to New York and maybe Obi Toppin comes up off the bench at some point, maybe those two can have some chemistry together and they can have what it was supposed to be between him and Zion Williamson. That's just what I think should happen. But here's the good news about whoever gets this player. Personally, I think what's going to happen, because J.J. Redick is a savvy veteran and he's looking to win a championship in his later years. He's in the twilight of his career, of course. He wants to play for a contender. And most contenders need what? Defenders, which is what Lonzo Ball is. So more than likely what's going to happen is these two players from the Pelicans are going to be traded as a package. And when you get this package, you have to know what you're doing with them. Personally, I think that a team like New York, maybe even a team like, I don't want to, you know what, I'm going to say it. I would like to see him in Indiana. Indiana could possibly use this trade pretty well. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon is playing really well, but I mean, maybe they can find a way, maybe Justin Holiday could find himself in this trade somewhere. Personally, I wouldn't mind having Lonzo Ball or J.J. Redick in Miami, but again, everyone who tries to trade with Miami they all want to take Tyler Herro from me. And I'm speaking for the Miami Heat. No one can have Tyler Herro. He is a Miami Heat player. He's staying. Kendrick Nunn, I love him, but he has to go. He has to go. Duncan Robinson, I'm a little apprehensive to let him go, but if I have to, I will, but I'd really rather not. They're just certain players that you just don't part ways with. And now, I am into this idea. Since Dennis Smith Jr. is going to the G League, I've been a huge advocate for the Miami Heat to pick up another point guard. And we, unfortunately, and this is terrible news, we just lost one of our centers for the remainder of the year. Now, the good news is this opens up a roster spot. We don't necessarily need another 5, but we could use another point guard, or just another guard in general, a combo guard. Enter Dennis Smith Jr. He can come in and get some PT immediately, because Kendrick Nunn he's not shown consistency enough to actually be a part of the normal rotation, because he's always in and out. He's in and out. And it's not because of injury. It's because Coach Eric Spoelstra hasn't seen a reason to continue having him in and out of the doggone lineup. So I think that that's an opportunity there as well. Also, if we are looking for a big, I know someone in Cleveland. His name is Thon Maker. He was a 10th pick in the draft a few years ago. I thought he was a steal, and he has not found his way in the league just yet. I think that, again, he's one of those players that need to be in the right system around the right coaches. I think that Thon Maker comes to the Heat. We can use him as a defender. I mean, he's a 7'1" power forward, a floor stretcher. He could be everything that the 5 that we just lost for the season. By the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to say his name. His name is Myers Leonard. He's a very underrated player. He played for the Blazers for a very long time, and I was glad to have him here. And I'm sad to see him go, because I needed another floor stretcher other than Kelly Olynyk. And but I would love to have Thon Maker. And honestly, Cleveland isn't even using him, and he almost didn't even make that roster because of Cleveland doesn't really know where they're going right now. They're just guard heavy, and they should stay that way. Yeah, that's going to be something that's just on me for the moment. Another team that is showing up bigger than they thought they would, the Toronto Raptors. Freddie Van Vliet, my guy. I love this guy. I love him. He went from being undrafted to being one of the top paid free agents of this past free agency class. And he is now, like, I believe just a night ago, or tonight rather, he dropped 50 points in his game. So he's really showing out. Kyle Lowry, his age is starting to show. I think Kyle Lowry needs to go to another team at some point and let Fred VanVleet take over that team, but that's up to the Toronto Raptors. Another guy, I know I said it in a previous episode, but Bol, if he is given an opportunity to play, before I get into that part of it, Bol's two-way G League contract has been turned into a standard NBA contract, which means he cannot be traded at least for the next 30 to 60 days. So as much as I would love to see Bol play for a better team, I'm not advocating that he comes to Miami because he doesn't fit our style. While I wouldn't mind having him, I am an advocate for him to go to the Washington Wizards, where he will be a legacy player, being the son of Manute Bol. So I would love to see him play in the Washington offense, and I think he can help them on defense as well. As Bradley Beal continues to fight with the team, he wants to stay, as he says he wants to stay a Wizard, but his actions show different. So we'll see what's up with that. Personally, I think he's going to be traded if he doesn't just walk away from the team in the offseason. Yes, but as I was saying, Bol, I believe he can be the sixth man of the year. He should be a rotational player on someone's team. He's in and out of rotation in Denver. He's not the bona fide sixth man, but that's because Denver has entirely too many options. If I were any team specifically looking for a sixth man or looking for someone to actually start, personally, I would say Oklahoma City. Try to make a move for him, even though I know they don't have the assets for him at the moment. Well, no, they do. They have the draft capital, but they don't have any players that can play immediately that Denver could put to work right now. Not that they need them, but of course Denver is one of the more stingy teams when it comes to talent. They hoard talent like crazy out there, and to me it's disgusting. They have players that could be starting coming off their bench. Michael Porter Jr. should not be on the bench. He should be starting. Bol potentially should be starting, but I can get into that another time. So now that I've talked about basketball, I'm going to switch modes back to football. On the other side of that, we're not going to talk about the Super Bowl. We already went over that. We glossed over it, but there's not much to go over. This weekend coming, I believe, is if it wasn't the past, I'm having a hard time keeping track of it, but Pro Bowl weekend, nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. It doesn't matter. Now we're looking forward to the Super Bowl. We want to see what happens there. But on the other side of that, Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans. I'm going to tell you right now, man, it has been a bad year for the city of Houston, Texas. Let me tell you something. First, James Harden went out, and you got to get rid of him. And now your basketball team is doing a little bit better, but it went through a whole lot. Now, the Houston Texans quarterback, Deshaun Watson, has asked for a trade. He doesn't care where he goes. Well, actually, he does care because he has one of the most unique contracts in the NFL. He actually has a basketball-style contract where he has what is called a I forgot the name of it, but he controls where he goes. He has the ability to say no to a certain trade. If they want to send him to a team that he doesn't want to go to, he can literally just say no. It's called a no trade clause. That's what it is. It's a no trade clause. If someone says, "Hey, Houston, give us Deshaun Watson," and say it's Minnesota, he doesn't want to go to Minnesota. It doesn't matter what Minnesota is trying to trade Houston. He'll just say no. But at the moment, Houston is adamant that they're not going to trade Deshaun Watson, that they have no interest in doing so. They think he's going to play for them, and he's already requested a trade. Deshaun Watson, I believe, has played his last down as a member of the Houston Texans. As a matter of fact, J.J. Watt may be out of the door as well. It's quite amazing how things have turned around in Houston, and for the negative for the football team. I believe that if he's not traded sooner than later, he will sit out next season. He will pull a Le'Veon Bell. He will sit out next season, and the team will be forced to move him. And trust me, Deshaun Watson is 24 years old. He hasn't even hit the prime of his career yet. He's a hot commodity. Anybody will be happy to have him. Unfortunately, because of the most previous trade between the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams, that kind of drove the price up. The Detroit Lions just traded the quarterback that I wanted. I wanted Matthew Stafford so bad. And we made a trade offer for him, but the Rams made an offer that just couldn't be refused. The Rams have traded the next, I believe the next 3 years worth of first round picks and a couple of seconds, plus quarterback Jared Goff for the rights to Matthew Stafford. That's crazy. Matthew Stafford is 32 years old. He'll be 33 in a couple of days. He'll be my age. And to be honest, per his value and what he has not accomplished due to the fact that he's been in Detroit for so long, he was really only worth a third-round pick at best in this year's draft. Maybe a second-round pick at the absolute highest if you're reaching at that point. But my thoughts are head coach Sean McVay out there in Los Angeles has a plan. And whenever he has a plan, man, do they come together. So I've got high hopes for Matthew Stafford. I'm glad to see him get out of Detroit because that place has been a wasteland for his entire career. And I will tell you this much: Los Angeles is getting one heck of a football player. He doesn't complain. He's a consummate professional, and he goes to war for his team even in the worst of situations. Come on now, he was just in Detroit. He's been injured. He's played through injury. He has not complained. He has not cried, and he's barely set out any games. The man is an absolute warrior. He fits the mold of what Ron Rivera would like to have. But here's also the good news, though. Jared Goff gets an opportunity to kind of, breathe life back into his career. He did not play well last year, and they expected a lot from him, especially given the fact that they just paid him $118 million? That's a very steep price to be paying for a quarterback so young. Now, he did take the Rams to the Super Bowl, but I think that was more the defense than anything else. But regardless, he was the quarterback at that time, and he had a heck of a year that year. We're going to see if he can try to, come back in Detroit. Good luck with that, though. Detroit is historically bad, and yeah, that's... I feel like Jared Goff, if you don't find a way to get out of Detroit, you're going to be buried there as well. That's a heck of a situation you're going to find yourself in. Speaking of quarterbacks, there has been rumors that my Washington football team is possibly looking to trade. If we don't get the quarterback they were looking for in the draft, which I'm pretty sure, I still want Kyle Trask, who should be a second-round pick. For some reason, I don't know why, Pro Football Focus and all these mock drafts experts have Trey, what's his name? Oh my goodness, I forgot the boy's name. But they have 5 quarterbacks going above him. He is not. Kyle Trask should not be going below a few of these quarterbacks. Now, if I could have my pick of the litter, of course I do want Kyle Trask, but if he's not there, say he gets picked up early and someone else falls. Zach Wilson from BYU, I would love to have him. Or if no one else is there, Mac Jones. I wouldn't mind having an Alabama quarterback. That doesn't hurt me at all either. But being realistic about it, we're probably not going to take a quarterback in the second round. I think we're going to go defensive back, maybe go for a linebacker or a tight end in the fourth round. So I think that we're going to go for a possible veteran at quarterback, and the Raiders have been quite quiet about it, but they have a lot of draft picks, and they don't seem to be completely sold on Derek Carr, as he has been mentioned in quite a few different trade talks. Washington being one of those teams looking for him. Now, I wouldn't mind trading maybe a second and a fifth round pick in this year's draft, and maybe a quality starter on the defense. I mean, Derek Carr does fit the mold of the kind of quarterback that my coach is just in love with, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, personally, I think that worst comes to worst, we draft a quarterback either in the early or the late rounds of the draft, and we look toward starting either Kyle Allen or Taylor Heineke. To which, between the two of them, I'd probably rather play Heineke. He played really well in his only two starts for us toward the end of the season and in the playoffs. So he played really well. Other than that, man, there's been a lot. There's a lot going on in sports right now. Again, too much to cover, but I tried my best to keep up with everything. I'm going to switch back to the NBA for just a quick second. I did mention that Bradley Beal wants to stay in Washington. Now, it is common that most professional athletes will say that I want to stay put where I am. Usually that doesn't end up happening. Now, the ones that are truly disgruntled, they'll just come out and say, I don't want to be here. I.e. James Harden, Deshaun Watson, the whole Houston fiasco that's been happening this year. But Bradley Beal does say he wants to stay here in Washington, and this is probably the worst the Wizards have started off in quite some time. Earlier in another episode, I did say that I believe Bradley Beal will be traded at some point, and a lot of people think that it's because of the whole Russell Westbrook situation, and I don't think that's got anything to do with it. I think that he's ready to win. These are his prime years. Bradley Beal is currently 27 years old, and he's leading the league in points scored. He's averaging 35 points per game. If the playoffs started right now, he's your scoring champion this year. And his team is playing like absolute dog doo. I mean, they're playing like complete garbage. Hot garbage. Awful. Just, woof. But I can go on and on about how bad the Wizards are playing. If he does get traded, it would not surprise anyone. We don't want to see, I'm not a Wizards fan, but nobody, including myself, nobody wants to see Bradley Beal out of Washington. But realistically, he'll probably get traded based on the fact that, again, these are his prime years. Good place for him to land. Believe it or not, LA, Toronto, San Antonio, Miami, teams that can actually offer something without losing. He's going to end up playing for a contender if he does get traded. Again, he has been adamant that he does not want to trade. But I was having a conversation with a friend of mine in a sports group, and he believes that Bradley Beal definitely will not be traded, but he needs to be a better leader because the last couple of games he has been showing some frustration, and it's not in a good way. Leadership breeds, I'm not going to say leadership breeds more, but I would say that leadership needs to be shown at all times at every level. I understand that, but think about it this way, and this is what I told him. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. How long can this man try his best to lead this team, as an example, on and off the court, and no one is showing that they have bought into what he is trying to show them? He's been this team's best player since John Wall went down 2.5 years ago. He has risen to all-star levels, and the team is still god-awful. The team has not gotten any better. Manager has not given anyone to work with, and it's hard to bring anyone to the Capitol because nobody wants to play for a bad team, unless you're just looking to get paid, and the Wizards don't seem to be wanting to do that either. So the Wizards aren't willing to pay anybody, and aside from Bradley Beal, they're not willing to pay anybody aside from Bradley Beal, and aside from getting a trade for a player who's probably past his due, which Russell Westbrook looks a little washed this year. I'm just gonna say it. He looks like he's not nearly as aggressive as he has been in the past, which he shouldn't be. He's 32, 33 years old. He's slowing down now. But at the same time, it's, the only way to get someone to play there with Bradley Beal is via trade. And that player is really just there to collect the rest of their checks and hopefully give them something. Nobody wants to play in the Capitol except Bradley Beal and rookies that get drafted there until they can move. There's a real problem there in Washington, and I believe Tech Leonis, the owner of the team, needs to get on that because it's not getting better. It's beginning to fester. And if you lose Bradley Beal, I think that you set the team back a good 10 years because he's not very good at drafting, let's be honest. The last good player you drafted was Bradley Beal, and that was what, 8 years ago? So that's a pretty bad track record. Everyone else is kind of washed out pretty fast. Now, you got some pretty good guys in these past couple drafts with Rui Hachimura, and you did just get, I forget the kid's first name, but Denny Advia. You did get him. And I think that he has promise as well. But neither of these guys are really franchise players. And you hit it pretty big with Bradley Beal almost 8 years ago. It's either time to move on in Washington and trade that man, or get him some help for once. Open up the piggy bank and go ahead and get him some help, because he's on the sideline praying mid-game because he's putting up career high numbers. You know, he's out there dropping 40 and 50 and 60 points, and he's still losing by 30. I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow for him. And these are his prime years. He's probably got, like, I believe in basketball, your prime years are between the ages of 26 and 29. He's currently 27. He may not be able to play like this for too much longer. So, we shall see. But, once again, this has been Hot Takes with Marcus. Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't given my hot take yet. This is a tough one. I'm going to give you one for football. Against my better judgment, I do believe that if Washington does trade up to pick a quarterback in the first round, I really don't want us to, but I have this horrible feeling that we're going to go after Justin Fields, who is slated to go in the top 4 picks. So the hot take here is, even though I don't want it to be, because I don't want another Ohio State quarterback on my team. Ohio State does not produce great quarterbacks. But the hot take here is, if Washington is to trade up in the first round for a quarterback, they're going after Ohio State's Justin Fields. And that's this week's hot take. Until next time, I'm your host, Marcus. This has been Hot Takes.